Good evening and welcome to the Township of Chatham Township Committee meeting. Greg, has adequate notice been given?
Yes, adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. Notice was given to both the Chatham Courier and the Morris County Daily Record on January 5th, 2018. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the main hallway of the Municipal Building on January 5th, 2018. And notice was filed with the Township Clerk on January 5th, 2018.
Thank you. Would you please stand for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Selin?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan?
He's running late. He'll be here shortly.
Deputy Mayor Swartz?
Here.
Mayor Ritter?
Yep, here. Do we have any comments to the agenda? We go. All right. Everyone in favor of the agenda?
Move to approve the
Move to
agenda.
approve. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Before we begin, we've got a proclamation. This is an annual proclamation that we talk about because it's so important. We have Vince from MAC who want to come up and say a few words, and then I'll read the proclamation. We'll do our photo op, as it were.
Okay. I'm Vince Fiorito with the Municipal Alliance in Chatham, and this is our 10th campaign for the Parents Who Host Lose the Most program. And we will have our posters, our banners, and our lawn signs out starting about the week of the 21st to 23rd, somewhere before Memorial Day, or Memorial Day. Let me get these things right. So we'll have a crash car at the high school with our banners on that, and we try to get as many signs out, as many banners as we can get out. The police department in the township, Dave Gallo takes care of the banners in the township, and we have people in the borough that take care of our banners there, and then we take care of the posters and the lawn signs. And hopefully everybody has enough in their bedrooms and their basements now that we can keep some of them, where they need to be for the period of time, for the month of June, for graduation and the proms.
Great.
So I want to thank, the council for recognizing this program and supporting us for all these years.
Great. Well, thank you, Vince, and all the great work that you and Kelly and everyone else in the committee that you all do for the community and bringing, raising awareness for important issues that, people don't always want to talk about in the wonderful town that we live in. But the reality is, kids drink, and we need to make people aware of the fact that they shouldn't be drinking. And this campaign, I think, does bring awareness to it and helps remind parents that while it might be cool to think that it's nice, okay to let your kids drink down in the basement with their friends, the fact of the matter is it's not acceptable, it's illegal, and serious repercussions could be had by the parents and more importantly to the children. So it's great work that you do, and Mike is our representative to MAC. Thank you for your work as well. So I'll read the proclamation, and we'll be sure to post this on our social media pages as we do. We've got your Parents Who Host Lose the Most banner as well, so we'll make sure we promote it as much as possible as well. So thank you. It reads, whereas adults who provide alcohol to those below the legal drinking age of 21 are placing those youth at risk for health, safety, and legal problems. And whereas alcohol use by young people is dangerous, not only because of the risks associated with acute impairment, but also because of the threat to their long-term development and well-being. And whereas it is illegal to give or allow your teen's friends to drink alcohol in your home, even with their parents' permission, and whereas anyone found guilty of providing alcohol to youth can face up to $1,000 fine and 6 months in jail, in addition to any civil action that can be brought as a result of damages or injury related to the offense. And whereas adults have the authority and responsibility to our youth to provide them with alternative opportunities by creating alcohol-free activities. And whereas Drug Free Action Alliance, through the Parents Who Host Lose the Most, Don't Be a Party to Teenage Drinking campaign provides the educational materials to raise community awareness regarding this illegal and unhealthy practice. And whereas the Township of Chatham encourages residents to refuse to provide alcoholic beverages to underage youth and to take the necessary steps to discourage the illegal and unhealthy practice, including the reporting of underage drinking by calling their local police. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township of Chatham not only discourages the use of alcohol by those below the legal age of consumption, but also exhorts all residents of the Township of Chatham to refuse to provide alcoholic beverages to those underage youth, and will continue to take the necessary steps to discourage this illegal and unhealthy activity. Now therefore I, Kurt Ritter, Mayor of the Township of Chatham, State of New Jersey, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2018 to be Parents Who Host Lose the Most, Don't Be a Party to Teenage Drinking month in the Township of Chatham. Thank you, Vince.
Thank you.
Just to you, and you guys want to come down and hold up that sign as well. Yeah. I think you're going to start bouncing out. Good, looks good. Great. Thanks again, Vince. Appreciate it.
All right, my man. Thank you. All right, peace. Peace on it.
Thank you. Yes, off to your next meeting.
Start with you, Tycho.
Yep, I have a DPW report based on my meeting. I met with Rich Young, the director of DPW, earlier today, and based on my meeting, here's my update. And we finished the curbside branch pickup on 5/2, 8 days ago. That included the county roads. That's an important point. And so those county roads, Fairmont, Green Village, I'm sorry, Lawn, Asham Pike, and Myersville. And if you remember last meeting, we had a contract, we approved a contract for a contractor to pick up branches in those streets. But guess what? We didn't have to do that. Our DPW, kudos to Rich and his team, and also Tom Ciccarone as well. So we were able to do it ourselves, and we saved $16,000. Good job. And May 2nd, crews also went through the entire town and go through every street to make sure everything was picked up. So I'm saying this so no one can complain that they missed us. So they went through every house after everything is done. So compost right now it's pretty full, as you can imagine, and we're bringing the tub grinder to make mulch on May 21st through May 25th. So there's going to be a lot of mulch available, and if you want to get mulch, what you do is you need to go to DPW. So that's 405 Southern Boulevard. You cannot, you can call, but you can't place an order by calling. So you have to go there and see Christy. Christy is the person who's responsible, Christy Tragno, and she'll process your order. And my understanding is that earliest delivery is available June 1st. So there's a lot of demand.
How much is the mulch? What is it like?
It is 3 yards, $25, and 6 yards, $50.
Wow.
And it's amazing. It's like tenth of what it would cost you if you go to Home Depot or Costco. So don't go to Costco or Home Depot. Come to Chatham Township, DPW. And last few more things. And Colony Pool, a lot of activities going on in Colony Pool. And they finished the painting in Colony Pool and started filling on Tuesday. And I asked Rich how long would that take to fill it. So I thought 2 days, 3 days. He says like at least 10 days. It's a big pool. So 10 days it'll be all full, and it will be obviously open during the Memorial Day weekend. And cleaning the grounds in the colony area and making the kitchen ready. And big push is for Colony Pool this week. And Gibbons, those are the streets that have been paved recently. Gibbons, Henry, Central, and Bridge Avenue have been paved. And what we have done as DPW, we have done the catch basins and the risers for the sanitary. That's important. And throughout the town, DPW continued fixing the potholes. And thank you very much, and that's it, Your Honor.
Great, thank you. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a very short comment to repeat the kudos for the Municipal Alliance and the work they do. Just head that Frank, who was just here taking that proclamation, is heading off to another meeting of the Municipal Alliance, public meeting over at the high school. They do a great job of supporting parents in the difficult responsibility of raising kids these days. So that's it, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Karen?
All right, yeah, we got a couple of things going on. Saturday last week was, forgive my voice, everybody, Saturday last week was the Senior Center of the Chathams semi-annual shred event. It was held at the Chatham Borough train station, and it was record-breaking this year, as it tends to be for every time we do it. Folks are so willing to take the time, store up their shredding material, their confidential stuff, all those credit card applications and loan offers and certainly old tax returns and so on. And they store them up and they bring them down and they donate to the senior shred event. They filled the truck up. It was a magnificent turnout and a great fundraiser for our senior center. So I would encourage everybody to start saving everything up for the fall. They'll be doing another one if the trend holds in October, probably at the Lafayette Avenue School. Additionally, Friday, June 1st is going to be the kickoff party for our Glorious Garden Tour weekend for the Senior Center. So Friday night at 6 p.m. and then Saturday during the day, let's hope for great weather. Saturday, June 2nd will be our Glorious Garden Tour featuring some beautiful homes and properties around Chatham, the Chathams. You can purchase your tickets online, which is nice and easy. chathamseniorcenter.org, and there's a drop-down menu for the garden tour. So it's a great opportunity to support a great organization and also see some beautiful properties around town. We have, as you know, an unbelievably dedicated group of volunteers with the Chatham Emergency Squad as part of our public safety responders. And the Chatham Emergency Squad, as they have tended to do over the last many years, is simulate a mass casualty incident. They're going to be doing that this coming Saturday morning. They're looking for victims, air quote, victims. They need about 20 of them. They've started filling the ranks, victims of all ages. And what I hear from Emergency Squad Secretary Evan Skinner says, if anyone's interested in being part of the drill, please have them give a call to the squad building tonight. Somebody is there. Tomorrow, somebody is there. If you want to write down the number, it's 973-377-1131. You can call and let them know that you're interested. And again, it's all ages. It's adults. It's children, and they'll be happy to have you get involved in a simulated mass casualty incident. And as the rest of our first responders know, some of these things are not always attractive to have to practice, but God forbid we don't, and they're wonderful. Speaking of our first responders, Chatham Township Volunteer Fire Department, and their stalwart supporters of the Ladies' Night Out is coming up on Friday, May 11th. That's tomorrow at 7 p.m. at the Volunteer Fire Department at River Road. So that's a tremendous cause for 26 vendors, plus a wine bar. Board of Trustee President Jim Connolly has invited one and all to come along, and certainly proceeds, revenues will be going back towards the Chatham Township Volunteer Fire Department, for which we are so proud. And that's what I have, Your Honor.
Great, thank you. In terms of the EMS mass casualties, is there a date for that?
The date is Saturday.
Oh, this Saturday?
Yeah,
Or
it's
time, I
this
should say?
Saturday. The time is going to be coordinated between 9 a.m. and noon, but more details will be available if folks want to call and express their interest.
Perfect.
It will be conducted from the Spring Street Emergency Squad Barracks in the township.
Great.
So that would be terrific for folks to come on out and volunteer and lend their support for our first responders who are tireless in their training.
Great, thank you very
Yeah.
much. Just a couple of items. First and foremost, obviously, as Typhoon said, DPW is doing great work at the Colony Pool Club. Colony Pool Club registration remains open. I encourage anyone who has an interest in seeing what a great opportunity it is to have a great time in the summer at the Colony Pool Club. You go to the colonypoolclub.org website, learn more about the wonderful facilities and different amenities that they have there as well. So I encourage you to register today. It's been posted on our website and distributed via email that the Environmental Protection Agency, and Tom, I don't know if you want to talk about this a little later, I can just give a quick report. They're having a Rolling Knolls landfill Superfund site public information session taking place on Monday, June 4th, here in the municipal building. There's going to be 2 sessions, one from 2 to 4, the other is from 6 to 8. These are going to be public information sessions talking about the site itself. This has been out of the news for some years now, but the EPA is finally coming around to address the situations that were. They're going to have a presentation later this summer, they've indicated, where they're going to present the cleanup plan to the public, which is to include their proposed remedy for the remediation for the site itself. So I encourage all residents to, if they have interest in learning more about this, to come to those 2 opportunities to come out to those events on June 4th, Monday from 2 to 4 or from 6 to 8. Information is on our website and on our social media pages as well. And the second item, and Chief, are you going to talk about rave?
I can.
Okay, or I can just talk about it right now if you'd like me to.
You can talk about it.
Yeah, we touched on this briefly before a few weeks ago. The Morris County OEM has decided to switch from Everbridge to a new system called Rave Alert, which is a leading provider of communication solutions to many municipalities. So Chatham Township, and as well as all the other towns in Morris County, now have to switch over. And while we were hoping that a lot of the data we had from the Everbridge system would transfer to the new system, it doesn't seem that that's entirely the case at this point. So as we announced this morning on social media and on our website, we're alerting folks that you need to go and re-register, unfortunately. This is a new system. It actually is, I guess, a more advanced system, so it's good news for residents in terms of the delivery of emergency and community alerts. But unfortunately, people need to go online and re-register. Kevin Sullivan actually talked about this a few months ago, this thing called Smart 911. So it's not the first time folks are hearing about it, but we do want to remind folks, as we learned in the past winter storm season, the critical nature of getting alerts out to residents is crucial. So if you are watching at home, Kathy and Ed, those in the audience, please share the posts on social media. Please talk to your friends and everyone else. And over the course of the next several weeks, the police department will be sending out emergency alerts, or alerts, I should say, via the current Act Now system, just to remind residents they need to go online and re-register. Last item, as we know, this month, while we don't have a proclamation for it, is Mental Health Awareness Month. Just remind folks that this September 22nd, we're going to be hosting our 3rd annual Out of the Darkness Walk at Cougar Field, starting registrations at 4:30. The walk starts at 5:30. Again, this is our 3rd annual walk. We've raised over $150,000 the past 2 years for this important organization, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. If you want to form a team or learn more, I can encourage you to go on the website. It's afsp.org/ChathamTWP. That's all I have for my report. John is... Karen?
Oh, no,
I heard the click.
I did. I just wanted to add that I went on to the Smart 911 website this morning from my phone. It's not a complex procedure to re-register for our emergency alerts. I clicked through the link on my phone. I registered my cell number. I registered my my email address, also that of my husband, because of course, we're not together all the time. And it does ask you an abundance of information if you feel the need. If you are usually homebound, if you are unable to travel on your own, if for some reason you're a person who can't drive or doesn't drive, do you want to receive weather alerts? Do you want to receive road closures? So you can tailor it for your own personal needs. I don't think school closures are part of it, because that would be obviously a different body that would announce that. With all social media, you share as much as you want. You don't have to go put your blood type on there. You don't have to put your social security number or anything else. But if you do just want to register your cell number so that you will get alerts from road closures, severe weather alerts, etc. But really, everybody's got to do it. We found, as Mayor Ritter just said, we found how important it was to be able to reach out knowing with confidence that our residents were being informed. That's our utmost responsibility here anyway. So please do take advantage, get to the website as available, register your phone, your cell phones, your emails, however you prefer.
Exactly,
So
thank you.
It's not hard to do, just, it's got to be done.
And I should remind folks, I don't have it up in front of me here if I can pull it up. Lieutenant Miller indicated that if folks need help with this, you don't have access to a computer, or whatever the case, the Chatham Township Police Department will be at the municipal building in the planning board room, which is right next door here, on Tuesday, May 15th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. to assist with registration. So again, it takes a few minutes and you'll be glad you did. God forbid there's ever an emergency, you want us to get a hold of you. John, I said, is out. Chief, do you have anything to report? Yeah, I think John already told him, yeah.
My understanding with that new system too is that there's more options. You can either opt in or opt out for bear alerts or weather related or those type of emergencies, so.
If there are pets
there's
in
more-
your house, if you want them to know that there are pets in your house,
Yeah.
things along those lines.
There's more to it. Two things. At the end of last month, we had the National Prescription Take Back Day. It's my understanding it was a huge success. I'd just like to thank everyone who took part in it and remind the residents that we have a drop box in the municipal, or in the lobby of the police department. It's available 24/7. Ideally, we'd like to see it used between the hours of 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. It's the most convenient time for us. Secondly, here we are 3+ years later. We're up for reaccreditation again. It's been a lot of work. Lieutenant Miller has worked tirelessly over the past 3 years to keep us up to date on past practice. He's been working hard over the past few weeks to make sure that the building, the grounds, and the equipment are up to par. The assessors will be coming on May 21st, and there's a call-in session between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. You can call the 973-377-0928, I believe is the phone number for residents to call in to either speak positively or negatively, whichever they want. But there is a call-in session. There's also the ability to email ctpd1@ctpd.net. We've already received a number of positive emails from members of the public. I can share with you, when Lieutenant Miller and I sat for the last hearing before the Accreditation Hearing Board, the person who spoke on behalf of the board said that it was it was the best report she had ever read about a police department through accreditation. And, you know, I give most of that credit to Lieutenant Miller then, and there's no doubt that we'll achieve reaccreditation this year. There's a lot of work that goes into it. There's a lot of benefits of being an accredited police department. So I encourage members of the public to either call in between those hours or send an email, positive or negative. I think that's it.
Right.
Right.
There was some news report earlier, I think last week or the week before, about this bear sighting over on Candace. Any update on that, or?
I don't know. I don't know if we ever saw the bear. Obviously, the residents saw the bear. I don't know if we ever saw it. It certainly is not wandering around. We haven't gotten any alerts. So hopefully it was a quick hit on the bird feeder, and you know, we usually have good luck pushing it over the line and encouraging it to go somewhere else. So, and it's very possible that bear could have hibernated locally over the winter, got up, did its business, and now is moving on in search of bigger and better meals. So I haven't seen it, I haven't heard it, we haven't had any notifications.
Good. Good to know.
Yep, so that's it.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay.
Rich? Good. Tom?
Just briefly, Mayor, to add actually to a couple of things that have already been spoken about, I would like to acknowledge the work that was done on the storm debris cleanup, not only by our DPW, but also by the two local contractors who were the successful bidders for the project. That was Leo Hines and Chatham Disposal. They both really hustled. They did a tremendous job in helping us to get that knocked out. And the fact, I think, that they are both locals made a difference, because they certainly didn't try to milk the job. You know, they both bid. The contract was set up as a per diem fee. There would have been plenty of incentive for people that maybe aren't quite as ethical to stretch it out. They didn't do that at all. They really busted their hump and did a great job for us. So I want to publicly acknowledge them and thank them for their efforts again on our behalf, and also to Rich and his crew. I think the night that we awarded the contracts, it might have been Mr. Sellon asked, you know, how long it was going to take, 3-4 weeks, and I thought I was jokingly saying 2 weeks. But they did it in 2 weeks. They finished this job in 2 weeks, and that was tremendous. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. We did our spring paving. I think that's already been touched on. That went very smoothly. That included paving Memorial Way, the little street next to the Green Village Fire Department, and also the Green Village Fire Department's parking lot. They're going to be hosting a big event, the Firematics event, I think the first weekend in June. So it was great that we were able to get that finished for them prior to that event. I think it's June 2nd for people that are interested in going over and seeing fire departments compete against each other in various skills. We will be going out to bid soon for improvements to the outside of this building. They was included in the bond ordinance recently adopted. The main focus is going to be on the gymnasium side of the building, the senior side of the building, replacing most of the concrete, actually removing a lot of it, reducing the amount of concrete that's there, and just in general trying to make it look less like the back of ShopRite and more like an inviting municipal complex. So John's, I think, finalizing the bid specs for that. Hope to go out to bid soon and maybe be able to see construction sometime in the next few months on that project. I think that's probably about it. I would like to just add to what you mentioned about the Rolling Nose landfill. On our website, if you scroll down on the home page, there are buttons, links to various websites, including Colony Pool and other things of community interest. There is one that has been there for years that is a link to the EPA's website that is dedicated to the Rolling Knolls landfill. And at the risk of sounding like Ed McMahon on The Tonight Show, just about everything you could possibly want to know is there. All the information is there. And as new information becomes available, new studies are completed, the documents get posted. So the public sessions that are going to be conducted on June 4th are intended to bring people up to speed on where we are in the process. And as you mentioned, Mayor, later in the summer, they're looking to do a public meeting where they present their recommendations for the remediation. So anybody who does have an interest in it, I would urge them to go to our website, link to the EPA's site, and if you have any questions after that, the June 4th meeting would be an appropriate time to come forward with your questions. Great.
Tom, this was designated a Superfund site by the EPA decades ago, right? And
yeah, sure. Right around
that the EPA would come in and have something to do with cleaning it up.
Well, I think there's always been a little bit of a misunderstanding on the part of the public as to EPA's role relative to cleanups. They don't really have money to do the cleanups.
Right.
What they do is they identify the parties that are responsible for the contamination, and then they take action against them to get them to do the cleanup. So what's been going on for the past close to 20 years has been reconnaissance and studies, soil analysis, water samples by the principal responsible parties, all leading up to ultimately an order by EPA as to how they are to proceed to clean it up and to, at that point, be able to close the books on it. So it is a very lengthy, detailed process, and yes, it has been going on for at least 18 years, probably longer.
Great. Thank you. Kevin?
Just in time.
Just in time.
Thanks. A little late, but just a couple of things I wanted to point out. Mr. Mayor, thank you. And no real reports, but the the state OEM has recently issued, just today actually, a warning about cyber. They have a cyber center and about threats that we've all seen and experienced before here in town, scams essentially. And I'll just read this to remind people once again, there's always someone out there looking to make an easy buck, a quick buck. But they are warning that recently New Jersey has received several reports related to social engineering campaigns to victims throughout the state via several social engineering methods. And without going into it, basically email, text messaging, telephone, regardless of the delivery of mechanism, the goal of these tactics is to make you believe the message is legitimate, either by pretending to be a known person or organization, including wording that makes the message sound urgent, in an attempt to get you to immediately act on the request. For example, for some examples, a recent attempt involved a telephone call purporting to be the U.S. Department of Treasury, threatening action against the recipients if they did not immediately return the call. In a separate instance, a victim was contacted via email by a representative claiming to be from Apple, who was investigating a suspicious payment, and in order to proceed with the investigation required the victim to provide personal identifiable information. Last, there have been several reports of attempts that occurred after personal information was shared on social media. The perpetrator used the information to target the individual with a specially crafted text message. And again, to remind people, never click on links or open attachments delivered with unexpected or unsolicited email, social messages, text messages to prevent falling victim to these schemes. Avoid answering calls that appear to originate from your own or an unrecognized phone number, and never share personal or sensitive information. Join unsolicited phone calls. No matter what the request is, what the medium is, they encourage obviously members and citizens to never provide personal information or payment form to an unknown solicitor. And just to follow up, we've seen this before with the scams from the Treasury Department. The Department of Treasury will never, ever require you to make a payment over the phone or somewhere else. They will never demand immediate payment without first mailing to you. They will never threaten to call the police or other law enforcement agencies to arrest you for not paying your taxes or whatever. We might in the town, but they won't do that now. So, and please do not give them a PIN number. And of course, one of the major scams, obviously, is the senior scams that we have experienced in this town, and actually through good police work, we thwarted one of the campaigns and saved an elderly woman a significant amount of money. And that's where, we're holding your son, your grandchild, your granddaughter is in trouble, they're in jail, they need a bail payment, they need this, they need that, wire the money here. So just be alert for these things, be careful, be suspicious of them, and obviously if they're putting out alerts, they put out alerts on a regular basis, but if they're putting out alerts, obviously they're targeting New Jersey in this area fairly frequently recently. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. And the second thing is that May is Military Appreciation Month. It's always near and dear to my heart. So just want to say thanks, obviously, to all those who serve us at this time. And May 19th is Armed Forces Day. So feel free to fly your flag and appreciate any of those serving in the military on that day. So thank you.
Thank you much. Very good. We'll now open this up to a hearing of citizens. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues which are not topics scheduled for public hearing tonight. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening, Tracy Ness, 31 Jeffrey Court in Chatham Township. I wanted to follow up with the committee because at the last meeting, Moms Demand Action came before you and asked to sign a proclamation to declare the first Friday in June as Wear Orange to signify Gun Violence Awareness Day, and asked for the mayor to sign on to Mayors Against Illegal Guns. So I'm hoping that you guys had a chance to look through the material that they presented to you. I just want to go through some of the statistics here. They resolved to work together to find innovative new ways to advance the following principles: to punish to the maximum extent of the law criminals who possess, use, and traffic in illegal guns, target and hold accountable irresponsible gun dealers who break the law by knowingly selling guns to straw purchasers, extend background check requirements to all gun sales, including private sales that take place between strangers on lines and at gun shows, oppose federal efforts to restrict cities' rights to access, use, share, trace data that is so essential to effective enforcement, or to interfere with the ability of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives to combat illegal gun trafficking, work to develop and use technologies that aid in the detection of tracing illegal guns, support all state and local and federal legislation that targets illegal guns, coordinate legislative enforcement, litigation strategies, and share information and best practices. The support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens go hand in hand with keeping guns away from dangerous people. In 2016, approximately 38,000 Americans were killed with guns, 19,000 by their own hand. I'm sure with your involvement with the Walk Out of Darkness, you understand the nexus between unsecured guns and suicide rates. 1,300 children die each year from gunshot wounds. 55,790 are treated for gunshot wounds. 21% of those are unintentional or accidental with guns that are unsecured in the household. 74,000 people are injured in non-fatal gunshot incidents. In New Jersey, just in April, 93 victims of gun violence, 82% wounded, 18% of those were murdered. And there was just released the statistics by the governor. 268 guns used in crimes that were recovered by police. 77% of those guns come from out of state that are traceable. They come from Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, and Virginia. So there's two things that they asked. One was to sign on to proclaiming Friday, June 1st, Gun Violence Awareness Day, Wear Orange in Chatham Township. And the second was for the mayor to sign up with over 1,000 other mayors for a statement on mayors against illegal guns. Again, this is a nonpartisan group. It's not involving the Second Amendment. And we're not immune to it in Chatham Township. In January of 2017, there was a person who had a gun, had a perceived situation with a neighbor, and in the early morning hours walked outside and shot up a car. So people think it doesn't happen here. Thank God it wasn't more serious than that, but it happens. We had more than 400 students walk out at the Chatham High School, close to 500 if you included the middle school, to commemorate those lives lost in the Parkland shooting and the other mass shootings at high schools. We have, I think it's like 463 members of Chatham supports assault weapon bans. So there's a desire out in the community to recognize gun violence, and we can do so in a nonpartisan way. And that's what Moms Demand Actions looks to do. We also had longtime resident Jamie McLaughlin come up here and tell her story about her brother being murdered by gun violence. Unfortunately, many of us may be touched by gun violence, whether it's people that we know, whether it's someone who has access to a gun in the home and commits suicide, or whether it's somebody, a friend or a relative who gets involved with something having to do with gun violence. So there's a lot of support in the community for a nonpartisan effort on behalf of the committee to stand up and proclaim that Chatham Township is against illegal guns, is for common sense enforcement, is for awareness of gun violence. And I would hope that certainly with your involvement with the Walk Out of Darkness, with your desire to continue to keep our community one of the safest places and to support the community in its efforts to move forward with common sense legislation to help stop the gun violence that happens across the country and in our own state, that
Thank
you
you,
would
Tracy.
go ahead
Thank you.
and proclaim. So I would like to know if any of the committee members would be interested in proclaiming Friday, June 1st.
Tracy, if I can just interrupt for one moment, I've been in touch with Teresa,
Yep.
who's the one who presented the presentation. I got her emails, I've been in touch with her, and the proclamation is a mayoral proclamation, and it's something I plan to do at the next meeting.
Wonderful. I am
Thank you.
very glad to hear that. Thank you very much.
Yes. Would anyone else like to come forward?
Hi, my name is Danielle McDavid. I'm a resident of Highland Avenue. Thank you for considering the traffic pattern issue. I recently moved from Chatham Borough, diagonally across. I have concerned neighbors who moved from the city. We have neighbors across the street, a house on the market right next door to us. The neighborhood is changing. A lot of young families are moving in, and there have been a lot of close calls with kids, my neighbors' kids, with speeding cars coming around the bend and almost hitting us, hitting our dogs. It's been pretty scary. I think people use it as a cut-through, Highland Avenue to Hall, Southern Boulevard to Fairmount. They're using it as a cut-through. They're not used to seeing children there. I think stop signs would really help kind of make people pause and actually stop and look around and hopefully improve the safety situation there. So thank you.
Thank you. That's actually a topic for discussion later on.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, 126 Highland.
Would anyone else like to come forward?
Hi, I'm Christina Mott, 22 Nicholson Drive in the Township. And I had a question about the Rolling Knolls EPA announcement earlier today. I was curious, because I couldn't quite find it online, maybe it's there. Is this the first public discussion of their remediation plans during this informal presentation that they're giving on June 4th? Or is it more like they're going to present their results of their investigation and then reveal the remediation plans later on in the summer? Wasn't quite clear on
I
that.
think that's the sequence, yeah. The public session, June 4th, is intended as a prelim to them actually issuing their remediation plan later in the summer.
And I was wondering, is there a liaison between the committee and the EPA representatives such that there would be some influence by our representatives about how this remediation will take place? Because I understand primarily the EPA has kind of a governing function, and the corporations that they've identified have kind of the financial responsibility. But it wasn't clear to me how much of a role you as our representatives have in the process of helping to shape the way this will take place.
Yeah, I don't know that I could speak to how much influence we'll have in shaping the outcome. I've been engaged in this process since I came here 18 years ago.
Okay.
Been involved in many meetings with EPA, have attended meetings in New York City and Newark, and here in this building, with both representatives from EPA that are their public outreach folks as well as their scientists.
Okay.
And representatives from the PRPs as well. It does really come down to a matter of what the science tells EPA needs to be done, based on all the analysis of the data collected. So I'm not a scientist. I don't think anybody else here is either. So we will be relying, obviously, on EPA exercising their best professional scientific judgment about what should and should not be done there.
Okay.
And if you go on the website and where it says frequently accessed pages, it's a
Yes.
big green button
Okay.
that says EPA Rolling Knolls.
Okay.
So
Yeah, just scroll down to the bottom of the home page. There's a bunch of things there. You'll see there is one that's dedicated. It's EPA's site that they maintain
Okay.
specifically on this landfill. It's not the whole Superfund
Sure.
site. It's just about Rolling Knolls. So I think that'll answer most, if not all, of your questions.
Okay,
I
thank
think,
you.
Christine, also, you really want to understand that every one of us is going to be informed, and we'll all have the same body of knowledge. Tom obviously is very well versed in it. Mayor Ritter and I sat in on a conference call with them last week. Our main responsibility is for the safety and the information of our residents. We don't want anybody to be in the dark on this. That would be terrible. You know, folks, honestly, you know, when you talk about what a wonderful town we have, people don't even know that it's there. So all of a sudden, when, you know, the federal government comes calling, everybody gets, their radar goes off a little bit.
Sure.
But of course, and you would. You're raising kids here. We've done the same thing. Every one of us will be on the same page. They want to make sure that they have the information available to the residents. It's funny because we trust the federal government and yet we don't trust the federal government. So we're looking at the EPA out of an interesting prism right now. But we were talking about the timing of when we want the information to get out there to our folks, get it out there soon. The EPA is going to be doing these studies. They've already done abundant studies, and then they're going to put a plan out. And we're going to sit there going, oh, okay, so this is your plan. Then the public will come back again, hopefully fully informed, because the information will be there. Mm-hmm. And then they'll have public hearings on their official remediation plans. So that will be, as they said, later on in the summer. You know, I know that you're involved. You'll want to keep your ear to the ground on this. Everybody does. They really do. So we'll all be on the same page when it comes to what they're doing.
And as far as the informational sessions, I mean, I would expect, well, not expect, I was wondering if the committee members will be present to kind of help,
well, you know during the day,
represent.
we're all volunteers, so we work
Yeah.
during the day as well. They'll be well monitored by all of us. If one of us can get there from the 2 to 4, we'll be here, and then there will be an evening one.
Sure.
But obviously, nothing's going to go by without us knowing about it, too.
And we intend to have it videotaped as well, so.
I wasn't sure if there was kind of a private session for you as elected officials, and then there would be, and these are the public sessions, or if this is something that was kind of the EPA is doing for the entire community regardless of position.
No.
Okay.
Again, I mean, we've been engaged with them for years, so nothing that comes out on June 4th, I think, will be much of a surprise to us. There's certain assumptions about what we expect the remedy to be, but there's nothing official about it yet, and it can range anything from, you know, a cap on the whole landfill to excavating some of the material and trucking it off. So there's a whole range of things that could be in a remediation plan, and we don't have advanced knowledge of what it's going to be, but we have some ideas about it.
And those are in the documents that you were referencing on the website through the EPA links?
Yeah, I'm not sure if
really,
they've talked.
right?
No, they probably haven't talked about presumptive remedies yet.
Okay.
But
I didn't see
we've
that,
discussed it, and we've certainly made clear to them some things that we would have concerns about. You know, we don't want, you know, obviously, to see the Britton Road and that neighborhood disrupted more than necessary. We don't want to see, you know, truckloads of material in and out, you know, for months. That's not something that we would be in favor of, and I'm sure the committee would take a strong position about that. But we're not there yet.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? All right, we'll close out the hearing of citizens. We'll now move over to the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions on the consent agenda? Greg, you want to read them all for us?
This evening, we have Resolution 2018-94, payment of bills, 2018-95, approving meeting minutes, 2018-96, approving executive session minutes, and 2018-97, refunding sewer lien.
Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Mr. Selin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Swartz?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes. Next item up is a discussion, possible ordinance or resolution. It's not a resolution or ordinance. Well, it could, what you guys suspect. These are traffic concerns regarding Highland Hall and Longwood area. Chief, you want to come up and provide an overview on that, please?
Back in September of last year, we received an email complaint about speeding vehicles in the Highland area, and there was a recommendation for stop signs. I think we spoke about it maybe in a public safety meeting, and I think at the time we chose not to take any action. Probably my fault. I failed to communicate with the original sender of the email.
Excuse me, Chief, you did put a stop sign at the bottom of Highland, right? Highland Avenue?
No. So it was something that, on my part, became an oversight, and it went by the wayside, and it wasn't until we received the email asking for an update that Tom and I spoke about the stop sign issues again. We posted our traffic counter on the roadway, I think it was Monday and Tuesday, or Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. We put it in stealth mode to try to get the drivers to not necessarily react to the blinking lights, but see what their true conduct was by way of driving. And I shared that information with you. From a technical standpoint, looking at the 85 percentile speed, you would not recognize Highland Avenue as having a speeding problem. But if you look at some of the speeds on that roadway, you know, they're upwards of 38, 37 miles an hour, but they're very far and few between. So when you look at that 85 percentile, it's 27 miles per hour. It's 2 miles over the posted speed limit. But when you look at the average maximum speed, it's at 29. The average speed altogether is at 24. So technically, you wouldn't necessarily have a speeding problem. But when you're at 38 miles an hour and you hit the curve, or you're at 25 miles an hour and you leave Highland and you enter on a Hall Road, that's pretty fast. And I'm sure when you're walking your children on a curve and a car is passing by, even 25, 30 miles an hour, it appears fast, and it very could well be, given the fact that it's a curve and you're in a roadway with the children. Obviously, we all know that there's no sidewalks on those roadways. So when we look at, in the past, how we tried to calm traffic in these neighborhoods, when we have speeding complaints, we put up speed limit signs, and we increase our selective enforcement, but we can't be there all the time. And if we're there with the police car, the car's not going to do 38 miles an hour. Unless we're backed into the woods or up into somebody's driveway, they're not going to do 38, they're going to do 23 miles an hour as they pass us. And of course, our goal in these neighborhoods is always to educate, not necessarily take enforcement action. Now, part of the problem is when you look at the number of cars over a 48-hour period was 650 on Highland Avenue. A lot of cars over 2 days. That's going back and forth. So it does get a significant amount of traffic. Where the cars are coming from, where they're going.
How many homes
I
are
can't
on,
tell you that I haven't cut through that neighborhood once to avoid the traffic light.
how many homes are in that area?
How many homes?
Yeah. Do you know offhand?
I'm going to take a
30?
guess and say maybe there's 30 on Highland, 20, 30 homes
So
on
by
Highland.
600 or 300 cars a day, the assumption it is a cut through.
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
signs there that say no through traffic through, I thought, right? Or no, or?
No. You know, I don't want to get into the technicality of a no through street sign.
Wasn't there a sign there?
I'm
But
trying to, do you believe, I mean, there's a resident here, but do you believe Highland Avenue is much of a cut-through? I mean, it's so close to Fairmont, and if you're coming up Long Hill, would you really take a right there to cut through to save, I don't know.
well, for all the watchers at home, yes.
If I can weigh in on that, I
there
think so.
myself.
And I think GPS systems in cars now, where you have a map displayed in front of you, if you're coming southbound on Fairmount and traffic is backed up at the light, you very well might throw a right on Longwood and then a left on Highland.
down
and
Hillside,
Cut
right.
down that way, or Hillside, that as well. So anywhere there that people can avoid the traffic light is what they do. We see the same thing on the Glenmere side of traffic coming up Southern Boulevard. They'll cut through, go through Hampton Road, go through Glenmere. So that's part of the problem with the GPS systems, that people make decisions quickly anywhere that they think they're going to avoid traffic.
Yeah, you know, I don't know if it's so much the traffic. But I can tell you, when we step up selective enforcement on Glenmere, a majority of the cars that we stop are not residents of Wickham Woods. They're cutting through because they want to avoid the traffic, especially at rush hour in the evening. So it's hard to determine how many of the 650 over 48-hour period are cut-throughs. But the question is the concern about speeding vehicles and walking in the roadway and the children. We've taken action in the past in other neighborhoods with similar complaints. We were speaking earlier, there was a complaint on Henry Drive between Marion and, on Ormond between Marion and Henry. So, not wanting to put speed bumps in and not wanting to go crazy, we simply put a stop sign at the bottom of Marion, the top of Henry, and the complaints went away. So, I can only assume that worked because the complaints about speeding vehicles between those two areas stopped because it forced vehicles to start and stop as opposed to getting a running start down the hill or a running start up the hill and then turning. In this case, both of these roadways, Highland and Hall, are both downhill at the stop sign. I don't think it would have a significant impact on the residents who would live in front of that stop sign with parking because they have the side street to park on the side of their home. So I don't think it impacts them like the resident it would have impacted on Aberdeen when we put those signs up. I think in this discussion and when this is written or viewed at home, more residents that live in those neighborhoods may want to have something to say because we found with Henry and Marion and that Ormond section, it wasn't until after this discussion and then we talked about instituting an ordinance and had it up for discussion again that we got more residents to come in. Same thing with the Sandy Hill area, to come in and give their input as to what they would like to see. Again, we have one resident here who is pretty much expressing on behalf of the other neighbors that there's an issue. So, outside of putting speed limit signs up, the only other traffic calmer outside of speed bumps, which we don't want to do, would be to put a stop sign up at Highland, at Hall, and Hall at Wynwood as a traffic calmer to force those cars to slow down to a stop and then start from a stop to get to the next stop.
I think even if they roll through it, which people will tend to do at some point, at least they understand that they got to. I would.
You have an obligation.
I would think that people
absolutely.
do come down, they'll give a quick left and a quick right and just keep on going. And I don't use that street as a cut through, but I can see how it would happen. I can see why it would be a huge concern because of people being kind of cavalier when it comes to looking left, looking right, and not putting their foot on the brake.
And when you look at some of these speeds and looking at these numbers, I think it was between 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock at night are the highest speeds. It's also the highest traffic, one of the highest traffic volumes.
Which I was going to say, that shows to show you it's people traveling, commuting to and from work, or using it as a cut through.
Yeah, I mean, you had the opportunity to look at the numbers with the times here, and we've been able to pinpoint.
Yeah.
And we'll certainly increase our selective enforcement during those periods of time, but we can't be there every day. When there's a car on the monitor traveling at 45 miles an hour at 9 o'clock on a Monday night, I'm not going to dedicate an officer for 3 hours.
Sure, but we know the heavy traffic pattern is between 4 and 6,
Yes.
or between 8 and 9, or 7:30 and 8,
Yes.
or whatever.
But in most cases, we step up selective enforcement, the problem goes away, we try to educate, and then we enforce, and then we go away, once the problem seems to be resolved. And like Glenmere, and then it kicks up again, then we're back again, and it's a little bit back and forth. And then you start to see the speed limit signs increased in the neighborhood, or children at play, and all of those things. And we'll certainly revisit that neighborhood to see if there's enough signage, if there's enough children at play signage. But my professional and my personal opinion is, you put a stop sign up, you can't go wrong. You absolutely can't go wrong by putting a stop sign up.
So your recommendation is to put a stop
Put a
sign up?
stop sign up. Because I'm sure this young lady here speaks on behalf of her own concerns, and I'm sure there are a number of concerns that her neighbors have as well that just aren't here tonight.
But Chief, isn't the real issue, I mean, if you look at that hill, if you come around that curve and you're coming down that hill, you have to come to a stop. You know, granted, you can come to a slow roll, but it's a hard T, and you're coming down a fairly steep hill. So granted, you don't have to come to a full stop, but you're certainly have to come to a fairly slow to make a turn, whether you're going right or left.
Yeah,
But the flip side of that is, and on the opposite end, again, it's a steep hill. So if you're coming up that hill, you know, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to accelerate. You know, there's no doubt you're going to hit the pedal. And we've seen this in other places where there's a perception that people are speeding, and obviously they've made a turn, and now they're accelerating up the hill. Even on Lafayette, where you have a much less, I won't even call it a hill, I'll call it a little bit of a downward slope. It's very easy for your car to go from 25 to 35 without even hitting the gas.
Sure.
And that's a much less slope than what we're talking about here. So
Well,
I'm not arguing the stop sign, but what I'm arguing is that that's not your answer. You know,
Well, not to interrupt you, but I'm going to tell you that there's two things that concern me with an uncontrolled intersection. It's a person that's not familiar with the area, and the person who's too comfortable with it. I drive down Glenmere all the time. People who live in Glenmere shoot out Westminster, they shoot out Stafford, they shoot out those side streets because they just become too comfortable. Because
See, I disagree with
99% of the
that.
time
I disagree with that completely. I live on Stafford, and I see cars that come up and come to a complete stop. You know, it's different because it's level. You know, and you know there's somewhat of a bush there, so you got to peek around it. But for the most part, you know, and this is always the question of, do we really need to start plastering signs everywhere on our interior roads, right? So because you know it's an aesthetics thing. Also, I get the traffic safety thing, and where there's a purpose for it, there's a point for it, and there's a purpose for it. Absolutely, and in this case, there may be. But my point again is, I don't think that solves the problem. The cut through traffic, and you know, anybody who's been on Southern Boulevard at rush hour, you know, people are cutting through our town. They're, you know, in a variety of different ways, not just our town, but a series of towns. And to Tom's point, they will find the shortest distance between 2 points. So, you know, that's all well and good, but I really think it goes to enforcement. You do it a few times, and we've seen it. We've seen it on Glenmere. We've seen it in Wickham Woods. Usually it's the residents who live there, which we try to be resident friendly. We get it, but at rush hour, certainly you're getting those people from out of town.
We're only a traffic calmer when we're there. Right?
Yeah, but
when we're on the
but-
side of the road, we're a traffic calmer. When someone drives down that road and sees us there and slows down, yes, they start to think twice about it until
Right.
they've come back down that road 10, 15
But
times.
they think you might
and they
be there
don't see
next
another
time.
police car.
But they think you're going to be there, so
But that's
if you do it enough.
But the
sporadically.
stop sign's always there.
Does a not no through street, does that require an ordinance, or that's just something you can erect yourself?
I'd rather not touch that.
Well, you hear
sign.
this is the Waze issue, right? This is the issue all the towns in California have, and the people are on their Waze machines or their GPS thing, and they get that Waze says, you know what, go through here. I mean, I go to some medical group, it tells me to go down some side streets to avoid the McDonald's light, right? The same situation.
Well, there's a community in Bergen County, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah,
where you need a permit to drive through the
It's
town.
the only
Yeah.
way because of the
Right.
proximity to the.
Mayor, to answer your question, it's not enforceable without an ordinance. So you can put up all the signs you want, but if they write tickets and somebody goes to court and challenges it, if there's not an ordinance authorizing it, it'll be dismissed.
And how do you enforce a no-through traffic sign?
Yeah.
It looks great, there's no ordinance.
Well, if
I mean,
you,
I'm
if you
sorry,
had an ordinance, there's no
state
through.
law- There's no state law to enforce no-through traffic. It looks great, it's a beautiful sign. A lot of people don't go down that street because they truly believe that you can't go through, but how do you enforce a no-through traffic?
I asked you that question.
No, you can't.
Well, how do they have these signs? I mean, you don't just create a sign you can't enforce.
I don't know where the signs came from. There are 1 or 2 signs in town here, I don't know where they came from. They've been here longer than I have. I've been here 30 years.
But Chief, what's your recommendation here? What's your solution?
my recommendation is that we put stop signs at those two intersections. Or we consider it, and we invite the public to come the next time, whatever the process is, we introduce an ordinance and then allow the public to speak. And weigh the pros and cons, because we did the same thing with Sandy Hill and all those side streets. And we were set. It was 3 4-way stop signs. And then we heard from members of the neighborhood who it was most directly going to impact. And then we tweaked it a little bit. I don't think there's much tweaking here. It's either a stop sign and perhaps prevent a tragedy, as this young lady believes is imminent, or we leave the intersections uncontrolled. Because looking at the historical data, and we spoke about it, I think, back in September, we have really no accidents on Highland Hall and Wynwood.
But it takes one
Certainly
accident.
no intersection accidents at either of the 2 intersections that we're talking about. There have been no accidents.
So your recommendation is stop sign at Hall and Wynwood?
Yeah.
All right. Anyone have any questions on that, or comments, or concerns?
I have a question though. What could be the detriment, other than aesthetics I mentioned, and what could be the detriment? What is the detriment?
There is, you know, for the cost of the sign and the paint and the creation of an ordinance, right? We're gonna make a lot more people happy in that neighborhood than not.
All right.
Plain and simple.
I'll tell you the detriment. The detriment is that you put stop signs potentially where stop signs, I would never argue against the chief, right? You have an intersection, you have a stop sign, how can you argue against that, right? If someone says we should have a stop sign, it's an intersection. We should have one. The detriment is that someday the chief's not going to be here, someday we're not going to be here, someday town may change, and it allows an overly aggressive administrator or an overly aggressive police chief or an overly aggressive policeman, when you roll through that stop sign, your 18-year-old, your 19-year-old, or you, to generate a ticket and look at me, right? That's the detriment, and that's a reality of it. And you can become overly zealous in your effort to I guess, you know, be a good policeman, so to speak. And it puts the policeman at odds with the residents. Not a good thing. Is that our police department now? 100% absolutely not. But that's the potential
That's the
detriment.
detriment. Future, yeah.
Anyone else?
I mean, I'd like to say for the TV audience and repeat what the chief just said, is that I think an important step here is to hear from the neighborhood. And hearing from one person is you know, kind of a wake-up call. But I think we need to have a sense that this is something that a critical mass of people who are going to be affected by it day in and day out think is something they want in their neighborhood. So I would definitely support anything we can do to get the word out to that neighborhood that this is something we're thinking seriously about. I like your suggestion about the stop signs. I'm also opposed to the aesthetic negative of plastering signs all over a residential neighborhood, but I don't think 2 stop signs fall into that category. So I think that that's fine. And I guess maybe raising the subject about if we are concerned about this as being a cut-through, then they're cutting through because the traffic is backed up from the traffic light at the top of Snake Hill and the traffic light at the bottom of Snake Hill. And maybe it's time that we start looking at an engineering point of view of what we can do to make those 2 intersections flow better. I mean, I've heard people come to me to say, well, gee, why don't we have a turning lane on Fairmount Avenue coming from the borough? Because when there's one car that wants to turn left off of Fairmount and go down Snake Hill, Fairmount backs up because that car cannot make that move, and no one behind him can make a move. And then when you're coming down Southern Boulevard Hill, Snake Hill to the bottom, if 3 or 4 or 5 cars back up at the traffic light, then that 5th car is now stopping any car from going past on the right and making the merge right onto River Road. So now it backs up up the hill. And there have been times when I've come on Southern Boulevard, gotten to the traffic light, and you couldn't go through that intersection even when it cycled green again, because the traffic is backed right up the hill and right up chock-a-block to the traffic light at the top of the hill. So, I mean, I'm not an engineer, and I'm sure it's more complicated than I'm making it, but I think if we're now seeing a spillover problem, then maybe we need to take a closer look at what may be the cause of people looking at their Waze and their Google Maps and saying, I'm going to do a cut through on a side street.
Yeah, good point. You've got to contact the county for that one.
Lieutenant Miller and I, we've discussed ways to try to lessen through traffic on the side streets in the evening rush hour. And we're not sure if our suggestion would be detrimental or would be beneficial, but it would be expensive to find out. Because it's a matter of changing the pattern of the traffic light. Maybe 20 more seconds on Sutherland Boulevard in the evening rush hour allows 15 more cars to go through.
Yeah.
So you don't have the backup on Sutherland Boulevard, and you don't have the cars speeding up Wynwood or down Glenmere. But then what happens in that 20 seconds to Fairmont? And now there's that backup, and do those cars now cut through those neighborhoods to get there? We used to have a big problem in Wickham Woods on Fairmont before they redid the traffic light many years ago, and that's why you see the no left turn signs on Fairmont on Runnymede West. Those signs still exist, the ordinance still exists, and it minimized the traffic flow through Wickham Woods in the morning, but we don't have that traffic anymore on Fairmont Avenue. But it impacted the residents, because the residents weren't allowed to turn either. And that was enforceable through everyone. And in my younger days, I wrote many residents for making that turn. So the signs do have an impact. They have an impact on the residents, but I don't think the stop signs had that big of an impact. You just got to stop. It's a stop sign. Just stop, look, and go.
Yeah, I don't, Chief, I'm not arguing. I'm just saying I don't think that's a complete answer. That's not enough. If you really want to make a difference, it all drives to enforcement.
Who has an interest in introducing an ordinance at the next meeting regarding the stop sign? Is enough of a consensus to introduce it?
I think so.
I think so.
All right, we can get,
And couple it with a request to the public to either contact us by email or show up at the meeting for the public hearing.
Show up at the meeting.
We'll introduce it at the next meeting, and then there'll be a public hearing
introduced,
following.
we'll get news from that.
Well,
Kathy
you'll
and Ed
tell
will
your
write something
neighbors,
up.
Right, you'll have them all here.
It'll give us, Kathy will give us a nice write-up on this.
Right, you're on Facebook Live right now, Chief.
Everyone, you know?
All right,
He's getting all these like little thumbs and
What?
you got on Facebook Live right now. I'm sure there's comments or those coming up galore and
all those
thumbs
little
and
red hearts.
stars and hearts and
There you go.
say hello.
There you go. Good?
We're all good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chief.
Tom?
No, staying out.
Staying out? Okay, good enough. Open up for hearing of citizens. Anyone wants to come forward? All right, close up the hearing of citizens. We'll move off to executive session. We got 2 items on the docket this evening. Greg, you want to read it off for us, please?
Resolution 2018-P-06, resolution of the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham and the County of Morris, State of New Jersey, authorizing conference of the Township Committee with the public excluded, whereas NJSA 10:4-12 of the Open Public Meetings Act permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of the specified subject matter. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Litigation in the matter of the Township of Chatham for a judgment of compliance of its third round housing element and fair share plan. Litigation, Fair Share Housing Center versus Township of Chatham. It is anticipated that the minutes on the subject matter of the executive session will be made public upon conclusion of the matter under discussion and in any event when appropriate pursuant to NJSA 10:4-7 and 4-13. The committee will come back into regular session and may take further action. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
Thank you. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Solon?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes.